My girlfriend rejected my proposal for not being dreamy enough, but when I discovered her real dream, I made sure it turned into a nightmare. I, 28 male, recently proposed to my girlfriend of 3 years, 26 female, and let's just say it didn't go the way I imagined. In fact, it went about as far from happily ever after as you can get without calling it a straight-up disaster. First, let me give you some context about us. We met 3 years ago at my old job. I was working in IT, the kind of guy who could fix your computer but wouldn't really chat much while doing it. I kept my head down, did my work, and counted the minutes until I could go home and decompress with Netflix. Then there was her, the opposite of me in every possible way. She worked in marketing, which is already the most extroverted department in any company, and she thrived on attention. She'd walk into the office, and it was like a light got turned on. She could make the most mundane story sound hilarious, and she had this charisma that made everyone want to be around her. Normally, I wouldn't go for someone like that. I'm the laid-back, quiet, and focused type, and I don't like feeling like I'm in the spotlight. But there was something about her, this energy I couldn't ignore. We started talking during lunch breaks, which turned into inside jokes, which turned into me actually looking forward to going to work just to see her. I wasn't looking for a relationship at the time, but before I knew it, I was smitten. When I got an offer for a new job, I decided to shoot my shot. I figured if it went badly, I was leaving anyway, so no big deal. I asked her out, and to my surprise, she said yes. Our first date was at this quirky little Italian place, and I remember thinking, wow, she's even more amazing outside of work. She was funny, smart, and a great listener. Even though she loved being the center of attention, she also knew how to make me feel seen. After that, things moved fast. We officially became a couple within a few weeks, and it felt like everything just clicked. Sure, we had our differences. She loved going to parties and hosting get-togethers, while I was more of a stay-in-and-order takeout guy. She'd drag me to events, and I'd reluctantly go, but by the end of the night, I'd usually have a good time. She had this way of bringing me out of my shell, and I liked that about her. Over the years, we built a life together. We moved into a cozy apartment downtown, split chores, and found a rhythm that worked for us. She introduced me to her loud and loving family, and I showed her how to appreciate the quiet moments, like watching a movie at home or going for a hike. I'm not saying everything was perfect. We had our share of fights, mostly about our different social styles, but we always managed to find common ground. I honestly thought we were building something solid. For the last year, we'd been talking more seriously about the future, marriage, kids, the whole thing. She'd drop hints about how she wanted a fairytale wedding, and we even went ring shopping together a few months ago. She tried on a few rings and told me what she liked, nothing too big, but not too small either. I made mental notes, trying to figure out what would make her happiest without completely draining my savings. By the time I decided to propose, I was convinced I had it all planned out. I'm not the flashy, grand gesture type, so I wanted something meaningful but not over the top. I planned a day full of her favorite things, brunch at her favorite cafe, a pottery class, she loves artsy stuff, and a sunset walk along the river. I thought it would be a perfect mix of romance and thoughtfulness. For dinner, I had booked a table at this little restaurant we both loved. It wasn't one of those over-the-top places, but it was perfect for us, or at least I thought it was. Cozy, intimate, warm lighting, and food so good it could make you rethink your whole life. I figured it'd be the ideal spot for what I had planned. The whole day had gone smoothly. She seemed genuinely happy, smiling, laughing, leaning into me during our walk by the river. Meanwhile, I was nervous on the inside, replaying my speech in my head and trying not to give away how many times I was discreetly patting my pocket to make sure the ring box hadn't vanished. When dessert arrived, I knew it was time. My heart was pounding so hard. I reached into my pocket, stood up, and got down on one knee. She looked up at me, eyes wide, and I smiled, trying to keep my voice steady. "I love you more than anything," I said, or something along those lines. I honestly don't even remember all of it because adrenaline had taken the wheel. "Will you marry me?" She didn't say anything. She just stared at me, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. The whole restaurant seemed to fall into complete silence, or maybe that was just in my head. I expected a gasp, tears, maybe even her jumping up to hug me. Instead, her expression started to shift. It wasn't shock or joy. It was this awkward, almost uncomfortable look, like someone had just asked her to solve a math problem in front of the class. Her mouth opened, then closed, like she was searching for the right words but couldn't find them. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime of me kneeling there with every eye in the place on us, she spoke. I can't say yes to this." My heart dropped. At first, I thought I misheard her, like maybe she was caught off guard or overwhelmed. But no, she meant it. She started explaining right there at the table that this wasn't the proposal she'd always dreamed of. She said she wanted something more extravagant, something worthy of the moment. She mentioned wanting friends and family to be there, even a photographer to capture it all. Oh, and the ring, apparently, it wasn't what she deserved. Now, I'm not trying to say I got her some cheap ring from a clearance sale. I spent months saving for that ring, making sure it was exactly the style she said she liked. It wasn't the size of a pebble, but it also wasn't some giant rock you'd need a bodyguard to wear. It was a beautiful, meaningful ring, at least I thought so. I was stunned. Here I was, pouring my heart out, and all she could talk about was how the proposal and the ring didn't meet her expectations. She kept saying she loved me and wanted to marry me, but not like this. I didn't even know what to say. Somehow, I kept my composure because the last thing I was going to do was cause a scene over this. I stared at her for a second, letting her words sink in, then calmly closed the ring box and slipped it back into my pocket. "All right," I said, keeping my voice calm. "If this isn't what you want, that's okay. But let's be clear, I need us to be on the same page. Either we're in this together, or we're not." She blinked at me, caught off guard, and mumbled something about needing time to process. I wasn't about to beg, and I sure as hell wasn't going to start throwing out promises I wasn't sure I wanted to keep. But I added, almost as a test, "If the ring's the problem, I can get another one." "No problem." Her expression softened, and she gave me this smile, small, almost nervous, like she thought I just handed her a victory. She didn't say yes, but she didn't fight me on it either, which told me plenty. And let me tell you, in that moment, something in me shifted. I stayed calm on the outside, but inside, a little voice was telling me this isn't just about the ring. Something's not right here, and I wasn't about to ignore that. We went home that night, and she acted like everything was fine. But I couldn't shake this nagging feeling in my gut. The next morning, I woke up with this lingering heaviness. She was in the kitchen, humming like nothing happened. I, meanwhile, was sitting there trying to figure out what had just happened the night before. 3 years together, and she loved me enough to talk about marriage, but not enough to accept the proposal unless it came wrapped in glitter, gold, and a public performance. The ring was apparently not special enough. The moment not elaborate enough. It wasn't like she'd said no to me, at least that's what I kept telling myself, but more to the effort I'd put in. Still, I'd convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, this was salvageable. Later that day, my sister called me. Now, for context, my sister, 28 female, is one of those people who can read a situation before you even finish explaining it. She's smart, brutally honest, and has no patience for nonsense. We're close enough that she's my go-to when I need advice or someone to tell me I'm being an idiot. When I answered the phone, she started with, "What the hell happened?" I figured she heard about the proposal somehow. I sighed and gave her the Spark Notes version of the night, the whole proposal, the rejection, her reasons, and how I told my girlfriend I'd get her a better ring. My sister was quiet for a moment. Then, with the wisdom of someone who sees through everyone's crap, she said, "You're not really okay with this, are you?" It's not great, I admitted, but she said she still wants to marry me. She just wants things to be perfect. Perfect for her. My sister shot back, "Where does what you want fit into this? Did you even want a big, flashy proposal?" I hadn't even thought about that. Honestly, I didn't. That's not who I am. I thought I'd planned something meaningful for both of us. But here was my sister pointing out something that had been bugging me but that I didn't want to say out loud. Then she said something that affirmed my suspicion. "Are you sure that's all this is about? The ring? The proposal? Because I don't know. Something doesn't add up." "What do you mean?" I asked, just to have her elaborate more. "Look," she said, softening her tone, "I don't want to make you paranoid or anything, but girls don't usually react like that if they're madly in love and excited about spending their life with someone. I don't know. I get a weird vibe from her now. I know how this sounds. You're probably thinking, oh great, the sister doesn't like the girlfriend." But it wasn't like that. My sister had always been polite with her, even friendly. She'd never said a bad word about her until now. "What kind of vibe?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Well," she said, hesitating a little, "I wasn't going to bring this up, but one of her friends messaged me the other day." "Wait, what?" "Yeah. Apparently, they had some falling out, and this friend, for whatever reason, decided to send me screenshots of their texts. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I think you should see them." My stomach sank. Screenshots? What could she have possibly said that her friend thought I needed to know? "Can you send them to me?" I asked. She hesitated again. "Are you sure? It's not great. I don't want to stir up trouble if this is just normal relationship stuff. Just send them," I insisted. "I need to know." My heart was racing as I opened the screenshots, trying to prepare myself for whatever I was about to see. The first few lines seemed harmless enough, just my girlfriend venting to her friend about how she wished the proposal had been more grand. But then it took a turn. She wrote, "I love him, but I can't stop thinking about the other one. He's everything I've ever wanted, charming, successful, rich. I don't know what to do. I feel like both of them want me so much, and I don't know who to choose." I stopped reading for a second, just staring at the screen. My chest felt tight, like someone had punched me. She was talking about some other guy. Who the hell was this guy? And why was she acting like this was some episode of The Bachelorette where she gets to weigh her options? I kept reading, though. My hands were shaking. She went on about how this guy was so different from me, how he could give her the life she'd always dreamed of. She even admitted that she loved me, but in the same breath said she couldn't stop fantasizing about being with him. By the end of the texts, I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. I thought I knew this person, this woman I'd spent 3 years with, who I was ready to marry. But now, I wasn't so sure. I called my sister back immediately. "Is this for real?" I asked. "Unfortunately, yeah," she said. "I didn't want to show you, but I couldn't sit on this. If there's something shady going on." I didn't know what to say. My mind was racing with a million questions. Was this why she'd said no? Was this why the ring and the proposal weren't enough? Because she was comparing me to some other guy? My sister must have sensed I was spiraling because she said, "Look, I don't want to push you into anything, but you need to think about what you want and whether you can trust her after this." I hung up shortly after, promising to call her if I needed anything. Then I just sat there, trying to wrap my head around everything. The next morning, I kept thinking about her indecision, her vague hints about options, and this mysterious rich guy she couldn't stop thinking about. I wasn't going to play detective or overthink every interaction. That's just not my style. But I also wasn't about to sit on my hands and let her play me. She was sitting across from me at breakfast, scrolling her phone like nothing had happened. She'd laugh at whatever popped up on her feed and toss the occasional, "What's your plan for today?" Like we were just fine. I kept my answers short, calm. I didn't give her any reason to think something was brewing. The first thing I noticed was how secretive she'd become with her phone. Every time it buzzed, she'd glance at the screen and tilt it away. When she wasn't using it, she'd flip it face down on the table. It didn't take a genius to figure out something was up. I didn't ask. I didn't snoop. Instead, I started paying attention. Over the next couple of days, I saw patterns. She'd leave for errands that seemed to take longer than necessary. She dressed up more than usual, and her stories didn't always add up. One day, she claimed she'd been meeting a friend for lunch, but when I casually asked what she ate, she stammered and said, "Oh, pasta. Or maybe it was a salad." "Pasta or salad?" I repeated with a raised brow. "Both," she blurted, then quickly changed the subject. I didn't press further. There was no point in confronting her yet. I needed to know the truth, and I wasn't going to let my emotions cloud my judgment. That evening, my sister called. She had more to say about the screenshots her friend had sent. "Look," she said, "I know you're not the kind of guy who gets worked up over gossip, but this isn't just gossip." Her texts make it sound like she's seriously weighing her options between you and this other guy. "You deserve better than this." And she was right. I did. I hung up and started thinking about how to approach the situation. Waiting for her to slip up wasn't going to cut it. I needed answers, and I needed them now. So, when she mentioned she had dinner plans with friends later that week, I didn't let on that I knew something was fishy. "Which friends?" I asked casually. "Katie and Sarah," she replied without missing a beat. "Where are you going?" "That new Italian place downtown," she said, her tone confident, too confident. "Sounds nice. What time are you meeting them?" 7, she said, barely looking up from her phone. I nodded and left it at that. That Friday, when she left for her dinner, I waited exactly 10 minutes before grabbing my jacket and heading out. I was a bit nervous but focused. At that point, I just wanted to see the real reason for her rejecting my proposal. I followed her car at a safe distance, making sure she didn't notice me. She drove straight past the Italian restaurant she'd mentioned and pulled into the parking lot of a high-end steakhouse across town. I parked a few spots away and watched as she stepped out of her car. She wasn't dressed like someone meeting girlfriends for dinner. She was wearing a tight black dress, heels that added at least 4 inches, and more makeup than I'd seen her wear in months. Then Sarah and Katie showed up, except they were a single tall dude. Yep, turns out her 2 friends were actually one guy. And not just any guy. This dude was tall, dressed like he stepped out from a magazine, and drove a car that probably cost more than my entire condo. He strolled up with the kind of confidence you'd expect from someone who's never had to check their bank balance, casually placed his hand on her lower back, and escorted her inside like they were auditioning for a rom-com. I sat there for a moment, letting the scene sink in. This wasn't a coincidence, and it sure as hell wasn't just a friendly dinner. I wanted to go inside and confront her in front of everyone, but I didn't want to make a scene in the restaurant. I needed to see how far this went. I wasn't jumping to conclusions without proof. I waited in the car, keeping an eye on the entrance. About an hour later, they came back out. They were laughing, leaning into each other in a way that made my stomach tighten. But I kept my cool. He walked her to her car, and I stood frozen, watching as he leaned in closer. My stomach tightened, every muscle in my body on edge. Then it happened, he kissed her, my chest burned. My fists clenched. But I stayed rooted in place, forcing myself to take in every second. As she got into her car, she laughed at something he said, like they didn't have a care in the world. Meanwhile, my world felt like it was tilting. But I refused to look away. I didn't follow her home. I already knew she'd walk in the door with some rehearsed story about how great it was to catch up with Katie and Sarah. She'd probably throw in some little detail about the restaurant to sell it. But as I drove back, my mind started piecing everything together. And that's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. The rejection during my proposal, the lack of enthusiasm, the comments about the ring, the "it's not what I dreamed of" excuse. It wasn't because of the proposal itself. It wasn't even about the ring. It was because she'd been comparing me to him all along. No matter what I did, no matter how much thought or effort I put in, it would never measure up to the fantasy she'd built around him. The dream proposal she wanted? It wasn't about fireworks, family, or elaborate gestures. It was about money, status, and showing the world that she'd made it. She wanted something that screamed, "Look what I have." And I wasn't that guy, not in her eyes. Anyway, by the time I pulled into the driveway, I felt that I'd been blind, thinking this was about me not doing enough. But now I saw the truth. She was keeping me around as her safe option while deciding if he was worth the leap. When she got home later that night, I was waiting for her. I tried to stay calm, composed, and ready. She walked in with that same smile she always used when she thought she had everyone fooled. "Hey," she said brightly, setting her bag down. "Dinner was great. Katie's got a hilarious story about her boss. I'll tell you later." I played along, wanting to see how far she'd go with the lies before I laid all my cards on the table. So I leaned back on the couch, one arm draped casually over the backrest, and nodded. "Sounds like fun. What did you order?" She paused for a split second, probably realizing she hadn't prepared for this level of detail. "Oh, I just had some pasta. You know, keeping it light." "Pasta, huh?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "From the steakhouse across town?" Her head snapped up so fast I almost laughed. "What? No, what steakhouse?" I let it hang for a second, just staring at her. The color drained from her face as she fumbled with her words. I told you I was at the Italian place with Katie and Sarah. You must have misunderstood." I stood up deliberately and walked toward her. I could see her getting more uncomfortable. "See, here's the thing. I don't think I misunderstood. I think you lied. And I think Sarah and Katie didn't show up because they don't exist. Instead, it was one guy who drives a car that could pay off my student loans and still have enough left over for a European vacation." "Sound familiar?" Her jaw dropped. She stammered, How did I know?" I cut her off. "Because I was there. I followed you, and I saw everything, the dinner, the laughs, the hand on your back. You looked cozy." At this point, she looked like a deer in headlights. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I folded my arms and waited. Finally, she managed to say, "It's not what you think." I let out a sharp laugh. "Oh, it's not? Then please, enlighten me. Tell me how going to a fancy steakhouse with a guy who looks like he belongs on Wall Street, while lying about being with your friends, isn't what it looks like." She tried to reach for my arm, but I stepped back. "Okay, yes, I had dinner with someone else," she admitted, "but it was just dinner. It's not like anything happened. We're just friends." My tone dripped with sarcasm. "You mean the kind of friends who require you to lie about your plans and kiss after having dinner?" She started to tear up, which might have worked on me in the past, but not now, not after everything I'd seen and read. "I didn't mean for it to get complicated," her voice cracking. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so confused." I shook my head. "No, you know exactly what you're doing. You're shopping for an upgrade. That's what this is about, isn't it? You're keeping me on the hook while you see if this other guy. What's his name, by the way? Let's at least give him the dignity of a name." She flinched like I'd slapped her, but I wasn't letting up. "Fine, don't tell me. It doesn't matter. The point is, you've been lying to my face while trying to decide if I'm good enough for you. And you think I wouldn't notice? That I'm too stupid to put it all together?" "It's not like that," she said quickly, her voice rising. I love you. I do. But you're tempted, I finished for her, because he's rich and can buy you all the things you think you deserve. Meanwhile, I'm over here working my ass off to build a life with you, and it's not enough, is it? Her silence was all the answer I needed. Here's what really gets me, I said. You didn't even have the decency to be honest. You could have told me you were having doubts. You could have ended things before dragging me through this. But instead, you kept me in the dark, made me think I was the problem, and wasted 3 years of my life. Tears were streaming down her face now, but I wasn't about to let her use them as a shield. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. Yeah, well, you did, I said, stepping back and crossing my arms. You've been stringing me along, lying to me, and making me look like a fool. And for what? So you could keep your options open in case Mr. GQ didn't work out? She tried to step closer again, reaching for my hand. Please, can we just talk about this? I can explain. There's nothing left to explain, I interrupted. You made your choice. Now you need to live with it. Her tears turned into sobs, and she sank onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. I didn't move. I just stood there, watching as the weight of her actions finally hit her. This wasn't just a bad moment or a mistake. This was a betrayal, plain and simple, and there was no coming back from it. I studied her as she sat on the couch, trying to force more tears. I'll prove it to you, she wailed. I'll cut him off. I'll do anything. Just don't give up on me. I laughed, a cold, sharp laugh that cut through her nonsense. Cut him off now? After everything? You don't think it's a little late for that? She looked up at me, wide-eyed. But I love you, she shouted, her voice shaking. It's just. I wasn't sure if you could give me everything I deserve. There it was, you deserve, I repeated. What exactly do you think you deserve, huh? A guy who will pay for your shiny lifestyle while you keep another one on standby for emotional stability? Is that it? It's not like that, she snapped, the crocodile tears gone in an instant. I was just weighing my options. It's not a crime to think about my future. Weighing your options? I felt the rage simmer just beneath the surface. That's what you call lying to my face, sneaking around, and throwing 3 years of trust out the window? She stood up, her face twisting into a scowl. Well, maybe if you'd gotten me a better ring, I wouldn't have had to think twice. That did it. Get out, I said, my voice calm but firm. Her eyes widened. What, you heard me? Pack your things and get out. You don't get to insult me, play victim, and then act like this is somehow my fault. You're seriously throwing me out? She screeched, her tone making me feel like I was losing brain cells just listening to her. I walked to the door, grabbed her purse, and tossed it onto the couch. Yeah, I am. You're free to go run to your option. Maybe that guy will buy you that big ring you think you deserve. You're being ridiculous, she shouted, grabbing her purse but not moving an inch. You're really going to throw away 3 years over this? You threw away 3 years, I shot back, the second you decided I wasn't good enough and started shopping for an upgrade. For a moment, she just stood there, stunned. Then she grabbed her phone and stormed toward the bedroom. Fine, I'm packing my stuff. But you'll regret this. I swear you'll regret it. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to waste another second arguing with someone who thought she was entitled to play two people against each other. As I stood by the door, I heard her stomping around, muttering insults under her breath about how I'd never find someone as good as her. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Good? She was a walking disaster, and I was finally done cleaning up the mess. When she came back out with her bags, she gave me one last glare. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. I opened the door for her and gestured toward it. Then you should have no problem finding someone who's dumb enough to make it with you. She stormed out without another word, slamming the door behind her. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence sink in. It was like a weight I didn't even realize I'd been carrying was finally gone. 3 years down the drain, maybe, but I wasn't about to mourn the loss of someone who saw me as a backup plan. I started getting rid of everything that would remind me of her. Her leftover junk, the overpriced serums, stray heels, and tacky jewelry went straight into a box. I taped it shut, shoved it in the corner, and made a mental note to text her that she could pick it up or not. I didn't care either way. Over the next few days, I focused on my life. I didn't need distractions or pity parties. I just wanted to move forward. The fallout started soon after. Mutual friends began reaching out, curious about what had happened. Did you guys break up? Why? I kept it simple. Yeah, she made her choice, and I made mine. I wasn't about to dive into the messy details or turn it into gossip fodder. If she wanted to play the victim on social media, that was her game, not mine. A week later, she tried to call. Her name popped up on my screen, but I didn't hesitate. I hit decline. A text followed. Can we please talk? I miss you. I didn't reply. What was there to say? She'd already shown me who she was, and I wasn't interested in the encore, but it didn't take long for karma to kick in. A mutual friend mentioned that the new guy, her supposed upgrade, wasn't interested in anything serious. Turns out, he'd been stringing her along, and the moment she walked out on me, he ghosted her. She tried to climb higher, but she fell flat on her face. When I heard that, I didn't feel angry or smug, just indifferent. Her choices had nothing to do with me anymore. She'd burned the bridge, and I wasn't about to rebuild it for her. The other day, a mutual friend asked if I'd start dating again. I shrugged. Not in a rush. When it happens, it happens. But I'm done settling. And I meant it. I walked away stronger, while she walked away with nothing. Now she's left with no choice but to deal with the mess she created. Do I know if she regrets what she did? Nope. Do I care? Honestly, kind of. Yesterday, she showed up at my door. It had been weeks since I last saw her, so I wasn't expecting her standing there, looking different. Can I come in? She asked softly. I leaned on the door frame. Depends. What do you want? She looked down. I've been thinking. I made a mistake. I didn't appreciate you or how much you loved me. I thought I needed more, but nothing matters if I don't have someone who cares about me. And you always did. I crossed my arms. Yeah, you did mess up. She stepped closer. I choose you. I want to fix things. I'll prove I'm serious. At that moment, if I had 1% possibility of giving her a chance, it was completely destroyed. You choose me? Like you're doing me a favor? Let me guess, you suddenly like the ring now, too? Her face lit up. Yes. It's perfect. I didn't see it before, but now I do. I shook my head. Unbelievable. You're telling me you realize how much I loved and respected you, but the first thing you bring up is the ring you said wasn't good enough? Do you even hear yourself? She looked stunned. I stepped back and pointed toward the hallway. This conversation is over. You made your choices, and I made mine. We're done. Her eyes filled with tears. You don't mean that. I do, I said firmly. Go play your game somewhere else. She stood there for a moment before walking away. I shut the door behind her without another word. So that's it. I'm closing the book on this chapter of my life and moving forward. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that knowing your worth isn't just important, it's everything.